The world around us is collapsing, but the loving promises of God remain sure. Somebody has to talk about it. For the best in Christian talk, you're listening to Ari Golden.
Hi, I'm Ari Golden. Thank you so much for being with us today. Today we're going to talk about, and I made a command decision just prior to broadcast time to change the topic from what happened to us to who are we. But before we go into the topic, I would like to read our verse for the day coming from Job 9:24. And the word of the Lord says, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he?" May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. Now, this is going to be my most important broadcast to date, perhaps one of the most important that I will ever do. I'm going to shoot directly from the hip at you. And I realize that because of SIPA, transatlantic partnership, Asian partnership deal that they're trying to push through, all of this involves total internet control and censorship, IDs, 3 strikes, total control of content, so that they can get folks like myself off the internet, so that, because the internet is actually the last free frontier, or somewhat free frontier, that we have in the country, and they want to totally take that away, because the internet is proving to be a very effective tool in getting the word out about the tyranny that we're under. So, what inspired me to bring up this topic today was I've just done a lot of reflecting on what I see, what's been coming out in the news, the focus of us today, and with the various news stories that come up, how we just go from one thing to the other. And it's almost like we've already succumbed to programming, and all they have to do is just push a button on us, and all of a sudden our focus shifts on something else, which is mind control, and we'll talk about in another broadcast. And we're all under it. I don't care how saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost you are. To one extent or another, you and I, all of us, are under mind control. Hopefully not to the extent of what we see in the world in general, but all of us to one degree or another are under mind control. And that topic would not do justice in just talking about it for a few moments. But I've just been watching young people. I'm 48 going on 49. When I see young people today and just how they just meander down the street in front of my house and out and about where I go, and the aimlessness, the lack of drive, the lack of initiative, the lack of any type of real social cohesion. I know when I grew up in an inner city. I grew up in Camden, New Jersey, and even in a city as with the crime rate that we had then, it would be nothing for young people to go out and to play stoplight in the street, girls skipping rope and double dutch and single rope, and just do all kind of really cool things with what they did. And guys kind of did their thing, and we walked everywhere. We went to the park. We played ball and football and basketball. And look at young people today. And we had our problems then. Certainly we were well on our way to the unraveling that we're seeing now. We were well on our way with that when I was young. But I look at particularly, I'm a little bit more sensitive toward the females, because as you can imagine, females are more apt to be abused and and the repercussions are more severe for them. That it just appears as though our young people in general, but particularly the females, our young females, there's nothing there to give them any guidance, no cohesion, no direction, no nurturing. So you could see what appears to be just aimlessness out in the streets. You see them with this guy, that guy. You know, young people are doing this, are putting videos online of themselves, or texting photos, nude pictures of themselves, sex pictures of themselves, and getting themselves in these relationships where the guy, and sometimes, many times it's the girl too now, are on drugs, and of course, and once you start getting on drugs, then as a female, you're more apt to be sexually abused, and you get hooked. Then you got to sell yourself to continue the drug habit, and so the whole thing spirals out of control at that point. Then you get depressed, you go to jail, you get depressed, you get on meds, you get more meds, and it's just a total nightmare scenario. And my question is, when you see young people in the state they're in today, and the young men gravitating more and more, young men are either isolated, and they turn into zombies, or they gravitate towards the gang situation, the gang culture, where they're now, for the first time, they're accepted. Now, for the first time, they have people around them that appear to be concerned about them. Now they're part of a structure that, in their mind, cares about them for the first time. And my question is, instead of throwing money at this and with reactions like, we need to lock them up, and we need to beat them upside the head, we need to use more non-lethal weapons when we confront them, and we need to take their kids away, and we need to do all these things. But does anybody ever ask why? I mean, how did we arrive to where we are today? That's the question. That's the question. How did we get here? Did we just evolve like this? Or was this all from Lucas Trust? That is, Lucifer, Satan himself. Percolating down through man-made structures, which, and they're in various forms of nonprofit groups and steering committees and things that are involved in social engineering. So while we're going like this, scratching our heads, the folks who are behind it are high-fiving themselves because they say they're just where we want them to be. Does anybody ask why? I mean, as a black American, when I was growing up, I grew up again in the inner city. We had our problems, but from what I see, we've gone down a bit from even where we were, and we were a pretty bad city when I lived in Camden. You look at the drop-off, and you have to ask yourself, how did we turn so violently against ourselves and so violently against everyone else? I mean, the biggest threat to black Americans is black on black crime, for the most part. But there's hardly any word about that. When we look at black Americans today, there's a high rate of illegitimate children, families with illegitimate children, single parents, no parents, mom's on crack, dad never showed up, dad's locked up, child support, what have you. When we look at the state of black America today, and we see the horrible rate of incarceration, the largest racial group in this country by far, in our inmate population, are black Americans, which has the largest prison population in the world. we have to ask ourselves, what is going on? And when we look even at Anglo-Americans, when we look at Latinos, when we look at Asians, same thing. There is a total falling away. There is a total disintegration of all of our cultures. And as I said, going back to Black Americans have a proud history. We have a proud history of invention, a proud history of literature, and proud history of kingdoms in Africa, and the list goes on and on and on. And our communities weren't always like they are today. We helped each other. We supported each other. We got through the tough times together. But now we've all just totally turned on each other. And you could see the same things happen with the other cultures as well. Yeah, Black Americans have been oppressed at times by the government and other groups. Yes. But I submit to you that what we're seeing happening to blacks, or have happened to blacks, is all part of this whole process to oppress all of humanity. See, it's easier. You have to break the population apart. You have to, in order to tweak things, you have to have a population that you work with, a separate population that you work with at one time. And then as you tweak things, and you tweak them on blacks, you tweak them on this group, and then you can kind of start to apply it to everybody. And that's what we're starting to see. And for a lot of those now are just calling and crying racist this and racist that. And yeah, there is a lot of racism, black racism, white racism. But we have to ask ourselves, okay, what's the primary threat? The primary threat is not Mr. Sterling saying racist comments about a black millionaire basketball players of his. That's not my primary threat. My primary threat is survival. My primary threat is I can't drink water without me being forcibly medicated with fluoride. I mean, who are we? Who would put up with taking mining waste instead of disposing of it properly in a landfill, in a regulated landfill, in a proper way? The powers to be say, well, why don't we just sell it to the people, let them pay for it, and we'll put it in the water. So we have an increase of bone cancer, and we have the lower of the IQ. It's in the name of trying to help save our teeth. It's the same stuff, for goodness sakes, that they put in rat poison. It's the same stuff they put in Prozac. I mean, it's like Twilight Zone that we're in. I mean, my biggest threat is the food that I eat, sanctioned by the U.S. government, which is a part of a fascist plot to contaminate our food with private corporations who sell us, who put pink slime in our food, who put GMOs in our food, which alter our DNA, which mutate our cell structures over time, which explodes the bellies of the rats. That's why it's effective. But they say it's safe for us. When I have to eat monosodium glutamate, MSG, in my food, which breaks down, I believe that's what breaks down is wood alcohol. And you've got all the other stuff that they put in our food, the red dyes, all of which is bad, the bisphenol A's, the BPA's they put in our plastic, so when you heat them up in a microwave, it releases the toxins and hormones which overload our systems. And now we want to know why people are all confused about who they are, their gender identity and everything else. And a lot of it's spiritual, but some of it's physical, some of it's chemical. When I have to breathe in all of the heavy metal salts that are mixed in with the planes and the fuel, it's sprayed in our air, and those clouds, they stay in place for hours at a time, whereas normal contrails from planes, they dissipate after a few moments. Sprayed over us. We have to breathe it. Those are my biggest threats. My biggest threat is what appears to be the total extinction, working on a total extinction of humanity right now. Not later, right now. It has been in place for some time. Remember George Guidestones? Those are my biggest threat. The only livable and acceptable population in the world is that number would have to be no more than 500,000. Probably want less than that, but got to make it look somewhat okay. 500,000. Denver Airport, pictures of total death, destruction of the planet. You can look up you can Google image the pictures of the Denver Airport. All of this stuff represents stuff they want to do to us. Plus the various quotes you can get from people in the New World Order establishment through the various groups and everything, CFR and what have you, where they talk about openly killing people. Those are my biggest threat. And they don't care whether you're black, white, or anything else. But they can't do it to everybody once. They have to get us to fight so that we can look at the right hand so that the left hand is not seen while they continue to work the trickery on us. Now, I know for some people listening to this, they're saying, wow, this guy is on another planet. See, just because you're not researching these things, just because you don't look into them, just because you don't read the books, just because you don't look up their quotes, just because you haven't read the white papers, doesn't mean it's not so. See, that are informed, and I was just listening to Jordan Maxwell. I don't agree with everything that he says, but I was listening to Mr. Maxwell the other day, and he said something that was very powerful. He said, I'm going to warn you, he said, when you start to uncover the occult, and occult simply means hidden, when you start to uncover the hidden things that we're really not supposed to look at, we're only supposed to look at what the major networks and the mainstream film producers put out for us, popular culture. That's what you're supposed to look at. You're only supposed to take in what the mainstream media gives you. But once you get off that plantation and you start to look at it, he said it's very, very, very dangerous. And I'm starting to understand it. I feel the danger. I feel just how real this is, because we're in a struggle for survival. Because the thing that these folks do what they do to us, it's all hidden in plain sight. And that's the part that really rankles me more than anything else. Here I was in my early to mid 40s when I started to awaken and see what was going on, and I'm saying it was there the whole time. But certainly we need to awaken. We need to push back on this. We're not going to totally make it go away, but if we can at least get a reprieve, we can do like Jonah did for the people of Nineveh. That would be a good thing, so we can awaken people. But just going back to this topic here for a second, that we're living in times in which the display of evil is on full display. I mean, we're watching entire satanic rituals being played out right there on television with the Grammys and in the Super Bowl. Total satanic ceremonies. Who's that one? Miley Cyrus, when she did the act with her tongue hanging out, representing she was exhibiting the god Kali, the tongue hanging out, and all the debauchery and everything. And we sit back and we take it in. See, normal human being, normal human reaction would be to push back on being force-fed what to think and being controlled like we are. So it wouldn't be so bad if we were just occupied, like the Jews, occupied by the Romans and having our wealth taken from us and being told what we could do and when we could do it to a certain extent. That would be bad enough. But these folks, or as I said before, they utilize the 4 Ds: death, dearth, deceit, and destruction. They are trying to kill us. Kill. Satan does 3 things well: kill, steal, and to destroy. And that's what they're doing to us. And if you look even at animals, they protect their young. I mean, you go up to a mother bear with her cubs there, you go near it, you're going to probably die. If you go near any other type of large animal that can fiercely protect itself and its young, it will fight to the death to protect their young. But we don't do that anymore. We just let our children just go off, go to California, to get into Hollywood. No guidance, no direction. And more than likely what you end up doing is shooting pornography films and develop a drug addict, and you get a disease, or your drug habit kills you. See, the reason that we had customs and things in place over the years throughout the Word of God is there for our protection. See, once you start to remove those safeguards, those firewalls, now you're totally susceptible to being attacked by the enemy. See, there's a reason why God gave a mother and a father. There's a reason why moms and dads should be there with their kids, especially the mother to be there while the father's out working. The mother should be there to nurture her kids. But now our children are being raised in preschool or daycare, being watched by strangers because we have to chase the dollar that is in our financial system that has made us debt slaves, where we are chasing the dream to have a nice car and a home, and all of it can be taken away in just a second, a moment, when we don't pay taxes, we don't pay our tributes, our tolls, tributes, and our taxes. So that's the kind of world that we're living in. We need to wake up. All right, a little bit long on this shoot, but I'm going to go ahead and give you our quote for the day. It comes from, appropriately enough, Zbigniew Brzezinski. In early times, it was easier to control 1 million people. Literally, it was easier to control 1 million people than to physically kill 1 million people. Today is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It is easier to kill than to control. Thank you so much for being with us today. We'll join us again next time.
Thank you for listening to WYU 93.4, the best in Christian Talk Radio.